Hello, I saw this meme on Twitter. I thought I was going to grab it and make a video out of it. When I first saw this, I had a pretty good idea of why this whole thing was wrong. And why don't we play a little game, and I'll leave it on the screen so you can think about why you might think it's wrong. And in fact, I might as well play a random track from my YouTube music library around 3 minutes long to give you lots of time to think about it. All right, so here is what I think is the issue. The main thing that jumped right out at me was that they were looking at the altitude angle only and not also the azimuth. So I took the NOAA Solar Calculations spreadsheet that I've been using before. I just made a copy from the recent one that I put out for Union Glacier. And in particular, I redid all of these columns here. The first thing that jumped out at me on this image was the fact that they were only looking at the altitude angle. And of course, there's also the azimuth component. So I decided to look at the both of them together. In this column, I just took the solar azimuth angle and I made it go from minus 180 to 180, although I didn't have to do that. The altitude angle, I just grabbed from the solar elevation column here. For these two columns, I subtract the previous azimuth from the new one. I add 540, I take the 360-degree modulus and I subtract 180, and that is going to give me a delta between minus 180 and 180. Most of the time it's less than 1 degree, as you can see here. And I did something similar for the altitude delta. Azimuth in degrees, I multiplied by 120 because each of these entries happens to be every 30 seconds. Then I multiply that back, in this case, by 120 to give me seconds in an hour, one for the delta in the azimuth and another one for the delta in altitude. I applied the Pythagorean theorem on these two to get the combined degrees per hour. And initially I was a little bit surprised to see this, and I was thinking maybe it had something to do with the fact that I was grabbing the solar elevation corrected for refraction. So I redid the same thing again without the refraction, and I pretty much got the same value. Maybe not quite, but it was pretty close. So I was thinking, what else could it be? Why would it cause such a huge fluctuation like this? I am in essence attempting to do some form of integral, and I was thinking maybe the change in the angle, or the delta x, maybe that was too wide and maybe I had to make it narrower. So I thought, what happens if I make it every second rather than every 30 seconds? And if you take a look at these values here, they're not going to change by much. So really, what else could it be? I was looking at the time between each reading, quote unquote reading. That didn't seem to have an overall effect. So then I thought maybe if the number of seconds between each sample and the delta x didn't really have that much of a role to play, what else could it be? And I thought maybe latitude has something to do with it. So I tried the equator, and I got this graph. I think this is probably because I'm taking the square root of these two numbers, and in this case both of them are negative, but sometimes this might be negative and this might be positive, so they all still come out as positive. So one of these might be flipped around, so this might actually go down and join right here. Well, what happens when we go right near the pole, the South Pole in this case? And so here you can see the minimum was 14.9938. The maximum was 14.9960 something. The average was 14.99496, which is pretty close to the right ascension delta. And what about the North Pole? Here you can see there are very similar results. What I've done here is I hope that I have demonstrated that this particular logic that has been attempted to be made is flawed, and that is because altitude and azimuth are transformations of right ascension declination with your local latitude and longitude in the equation. So I would say that it is more a cross-section of a cone, and where your zenith is parallel to the axis of rotation, it would be a circle on this cone, and it would be consistent 15 degrees per hour. And as you get closer and closer to the equator, it becomes more and more of a parabola. Once again, I would like to thank Flat Earthers for their misunderstanding and sharing their misunderstanding with the greater internet. It has given me a chance to look into this issue from a slightly different angle and to gain new insight. That's going to be it for now. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, you know what to do. And with that, I'm going to see you again in another video soon enough. So bye for now.